Okay, let me talk for just a few brief minutes here, kind of on your marketing and making sure your marketing and the forecasts that you do match up. I talked about that a little bit with your advertising budget, but also with your sales forecast and whatnot as well. One of the things that, I constantly I'll kind of look at, and I'll go back and look at your figures, and some of you maybe have already got a little note from me saying, your sales figures are a little unrealistic, and sometimes that's just intuitive, but there's ways to go about it. I'm going to pick on Randy a little bit because her and I talked about it with hers a little bit. So where can you find information, right? There's lots of places for information, and it might depend on your project. Austin's not here yet, but he's dealing with farms and ranches in a certain area. Can you calculate how many, or can you find out how many farms and ranches there are in that area? Absolutely. Guarantee you FSA's got that data, and if you can't find it online, I'll bet you could call the county office, and they would tell you how many farms and ranches are in a county anyhow. And extrapolating that then to your sales forecast, right? Okay, if there's if there's 200 farmers in a certain county, and the average farm size is X, the number of bushels, sometimes that gets to be a little long. The math's really, really easy, but sometimes the equation gets to be a little bit long because you're calculating all that. Maybe I need to do business with 10 of the farmers in order to meet my calculations, okay? And doing that kind of math really helps me make sense, and it helps the reader, the lender, the investor make sense of your project. In Randy's case, I asked her, well, how many parents are there in the Havre area with having children in the age groups that you're looking at? 0 to 4, 0 to 5, whatever the case may be. How many kids are there? And figure that out. Well, I'll bet you in the county we can't figure out what percentage of them use daycare. Probably no idea, but I'll bet you I can find some national statistics on that. What percent of parents use daycare, and then I can apply those national statistics to the number that I got from the Census Bureau, probably. Okay, that'll tell me roughly how many parents in Havre then are going to be using daycare. So how many kids are available, for me to market to, right? Kids, parents, okay. And breaking things down like that, it's a little bit time consuming. You got to do a little research, okay. Most of it you can probably do online, but some of it you may want to call a person, call the FSA office, or again, use the Bear Paw Development as a resource down here. A lot of that stuff they may have at their fingertips. Maria's doing something with education. Do we know how many schools, how big they are? Yeah, OPI probably, Office of Public Instruction, has that data for the state of Montana. How many students are probably enrolled in each school, on and on and on, right? How many instructors, those types of things. So you can find a lot of that data. I told you earlier, about you can find the data, the Montana Highway Department, where it's at, I'm not sure, but you could probably just Google it and find out. It'll tell you how many cars go down a certain road. Okay, so if your business was dependent on that, I don't know if anybody in here has a business that would really be dependent on that, but if your business were dependent on that, you can look up that information, So if there's 5,000 cars a day that go across highway or across Highway 2 in Havre, if 0.01% of them stop into my business, I'll make my projections. That type of data you should be able to arrive at. Okay? If you got some problems with that, let me know. And I'll ask you some questions. We'll figure out some ways to do that, right? Wiley's he wants to be a criminal lawyer. Can you find out how many crimes take place in Havre, Hill County? Maybe might want to include Blaine County. Maybe Northern Choteau County, yeah, which is what I just described as the 12th judicial district, and that's probably where you're going to be covering. So can you find out that information? Yeah, probably. That one I'm not 100% sure on, but I'll bet you could get a pretty good idea. And I'll bet you could call the courthouse and ask the clerk for the judge there, how many on average per week? Criminal cases come to the court. Okay, away you go. Okay, So do a little bit of research. If you got some questions or problems, with finding those numbers, and I'll grant you that out of every class, or maybe one or two, it's going to be really tough, and it's possible you might not come up with, something that's as ideal as I would like to see. Okay, but do the work, and you'll come up with some good information that's going to be valuable for your project. And explaining again, you want this to make sense. You want it to make sense in the fact that, I shouldn't have to look at the financials. Okay, I'm gonna, because I'm a finance guy, right? I've already looked at them, right? But I shouldn't have to. It should be explained well enough in your narratives that I don't necessarily have to go look at those financials to see if they make sense. Okay, does that make sense? So be thorough about that. Take a good look. Find some good, good information to support your numbers, and everything will be wonderful. Questions about that? Okay, I'm going to sign off here.